to all. We gathered here today at the 11th hour on the 11th day of the 11th month for a solemn ceremony to remember all of our veterans. I would ask you to please stand for the posting of the colors. Ladies and gentlemen, I am your Vice Mayor, Elizabeth Simmons, the City Council's liaison to military affairs, and happy to be your Mistress of Ceremonies this morning. Of course, we're here to honor our veterans, but I'd like to introduce a few special guests before we continue with the program. One who would probably not like to be introduced is Portsmouth's very own federal judge, Mark Davis, and his family, who are in the crowd. Our State Senator L. Louise Lucas, our State Delegate Stephen Heretic, my colleagues on Council, Councilman Bill Moody and Councilman Paige Cherry. We have constitutional officers, our Treasurer Jimmy Williams, and our City Attorney Solomon Ashby. At this point, I have a proclamation to present to our Mayor Kenneth Wright before he gives his remarks. This proclamation comes from the Governor of Virginia. Mayor? And it reads, by virtue of the authority vested by the Constitution of Virginia and the Governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia, there is hereby officially recognized Veterans Day. Whereas throughout the history of our nation, our men and women in uniform have risked their lives to protect the interest of our country and defend our freedoms. And whereas Virginians and Americans throughout the United States live in freedom because of the contributions and sacrifices made by those who have served and by those who continue to serve. And whereas these sacrifices are also made by the family members who support these men and women, who preserve the liberties that enrich both this nation and the Commonwealth. And whereas Virginia is blessed to be the home of more than 780,000 veterans, the seventh largest veteran population in the United States. And whereas on this Veterans Day, Virginians remember that we are forever indebted to the service members who have fought and died in defense of our country. And whereas events including parades, ceremonies, military exhibits, and tributes to distinguished veterans serve as models for other Commonwealth and to our country by our fallen heroes, we also pay tribute to a new generation of Virginians who have chosen to serve in the United States Armed Forces and remain committed to sustaining this legacy of unyielding patriotism. Now therefore, I, Terrence R. McCullough, do hereby recognize November 11, 2016 as Veterans Day in the Commonwealth of Virginia and call this observance to the attention of all our citizens, and it's signed by our Governor, Terrence McCullough.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Good morning. As mayor of this historic port city located here in the heart of Hampton Roads, I extend a heartfelt welcome on behalf of the entire Portsmouth family. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this Veterans Day ceremony. I think it's appropriate to begin by recognizing all of our veterans here. For all of our veterans here, if you could either stand or raise your hand, please. Let's give them a round of applause. Absolutely. Thank you very much. You have gone above and beyond your citizens' duty to volunteer your lives and your livelihoods and to answer when your country calls to defend the freedoms we enjoy each and every day. I also want to thank the families, and before I do that, I just see our mayor-elect came up. Mr. John Rowe, would you please come up and join me? Harold, would you come as well? Let's give them a hand as they come up. Before you take your seat, first of all, I want to thank John for a resounding victory on Tuesday. You know, the last couple of days, yeah, absolutely. The last couple of days, I've heard some comments throughout our country and here locally about our elections, and I don't like them. And I think it's extremely important that we do this because we should celebrate our elections. We're celebrating our democracy, the greatest democracy on earth. And when the people speak, we must listen. So I want all of us, everybody, to rally behind our new mayor in January, as I will, so we can continue to move our city forward. So if you and your wife would join us up here, I appreciate it. And thank you for your service. John is also a veteran. Thank you. Yeah, I see our fire chief has joined us. How are you, sir? Good to see you. I would also like to thank your families, the mothers and fathers who tearfully sending their children off to war, the husband and wives waiting dutifully for their loved ones to return home, the children growing up away from mom and dad, and the friends who keep vigil for a safe return. Now, I recognize if I were not the mayor, I would not be standing in this moment to be able to make these comments. I am a son of a World War II veteran. I have never worn the uniform. I've never been to war, never been wounded or scarred in battle. I have never left my family for months or years to travel across the world to fight for and defend my country. I have never eaten an MRE, carried a sea bag, put on combat boots, shot at an enemy, or held a dying friend. I have no idea what war is like. I have no idea what any of you have experienced. Your fear, your bravery, your suffering, your survival. I know nothing of what you know. And so I stand here today and I remove my designee as mayor. I stand here simply as a grateful American. And I repeat, grateful American who do not have the honor for speaking to those heroes here on Veterans Day. and there's quite a few of you here. And so I consider this a privilege on behalf of us grateful Americans to thank each and one of our veterans for what you have done, and our men and women in service now and what they continue to do. Since World War I, the United States of America's Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and Coast Guard have fought in at least 10 battles. We open our arms and our hearts and welcome all of them home. They did not all come home alive. They did not all come home whole. Many are not yet home, and we continue to send many back into harm's way. The enormity of their sacrifice is beyond compare. President John F. Kennedy once said, "As we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not to utter words, but to live by them." So it is not enough just to say thank you. We need to be grateful, thankful, appreciative. The greatest prayer you can say is thank you. 2 words, 8 letters, but weighted with love, gratitude, humility, and understanding. Ceremonies are important, but our gratitude has to be more than just once a year. We can honor these men and women most by living well. We must never stop fighting for our veterans as they never stop fighting for us. So as I take my seat, thank you, and may God bless you and continue to bless this great country that we all call home. And as I take my seat, I see our last year's keynote speaker here, Mr. Peter Youngblood, who gave us an excellent, General, this is no pressure on you, but Peter gave us an excellent speech last year. He's a veteran of the Vietnam War and brought it home succinctly for all of us to go back in a time and moment and to remember what he and his fellow comrades experienced during that time of this country. So I want to thank you, Peter, for that. You did an excellent job, and with that, thank you.
At this time, we'll have the laying of the memorial wreath. Everyone please stand. Lieutenant General retired Alonzo E. Short Jr. was born in North Carolina, but reared in Portsmouth. He graduated from Massey Northam High School. He holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Education from Virginia State University and a Master's in Business Management from New York Institute of Technology. He holds honorary doctorates from Virginia State and C.H. Mason University in San Diego. His military education includes completion of Signal Officers Basic and Advanced courses, Army Force Staff College, Communications, Electronic Systems Engineering, and Army War College. General Short has a distinguished career of over 33 years in the U.S. Army Signal Corps. He held a wide variety of assignments with progressively increasing responsibilities, from platoon leader to commanding general of the Army's Worldwide Information Systems Command, which consisted of 46,000 soldiers. He concluded his career as commander of Defense Information Systems Agency, manager of the National Communication Systems and commander of the White House Communication Agency, where he served not one, but two United States presidents, George H.W. Bush and William Jefferson Clinton, from 1990 to 1994. General Short has received many awards and decorations, including the Defense Distinguished Service Medal, the Distinguished Service Medal with Oak Leaf Cluster, the Legion of Merit, the Bronze Star Medal with Oak Leaf Cluster, and the National Defense Service Medal and Vietnam Honor Medal, parachutist and air assault badges. General Short retired from active duty in September of 1994, and since then has held several high-level executive positions with Houston Associates, a Rayathon company, advisory boards of several high-technology companies. He is a member of Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity and served on the Virginia State University Board of Visitors from 1994 to 2000. He has also received the Portsmouth School Foundation Distinguished Alumnus Award in 2011. He has one son, 8 grandchildren. His wife, Dolores Overton Short, is here with us today, and of course they reside in Portsmouth. It's my pleasure to welcome Lieutenant General Alonzo E. Short, Jr.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. To the mayors, did I get that? To all of the elected officials, distinguished guests, and friends. You know, old soldiers never die. They just fade away. You know, that's a pretty good concept until you try to put on your old uniform. You find out that you haven't faded that much. You're still growing. You know, it's a distinct honor and a pleasure for me to be back here at Portsmouth, to be a part of this ceremony where we celebrate and honor veterans and active duty military in all of our branches of service. Such an honor for me. You know, as I stand here, I'm reminded of the words of one of my heroes, General Douglas MacArthur. When some years ago he was speaking to a group of veterans right over in Norfolk. And he looked out, he said, "Oh, it's such a wonderful sight to see Old Glory flying over the land of the free. Because this land is free only because it is the home of the brave. Brave men and women who heeded the call and left the security and sanctity of loving homes and families to serve that call for freedom's cause, both home and abroad. And they did it well. All of you who are out here this morning, we thank you truly from our heart from the service that you have given our nation and the free world. You know, today, a grateful nation, a grateful city, we take time to say thanks to the countless men and women who have provided dedicated service. Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, Coast Guard men and women, active, reserves, Department of Defense civilians. All of you have performed magnificently. Those of you in uniform, you serve knowing that the ultimate sacrifice was always there. Yet, you never ever wavered in your commitment of your support to the United States of America and to your families. You know, when the service person takes off, they have to become mom and dad. And then they have to become mechanics to fix those old raggedy cars that we left behind. They become coaches, PTA attendants. You are to be commended. You are to be commended. You know, the world is still a very dangerous place, as evidenced by the recent war history and the tragic aggression that has been perpetrated against the United States and its allies. What it does, it lets all of us know that it is imperative for the United States of America to maintain a strong military force, a force that is capable of overcoming any kind of threat. And the only way that we can do that is have good men and women like are sitting out here in this audience today. Listen, as long as we have to send people to war, the cost of that effort must be borne by the nation that sleeps peacefully under the protection that is provided by the men and women of our service. And they do that so very, very, very unselfishly. Now, to that end, we must make sure that our thanks, it's a wonderful thing to say, yeah, thanks for your service and what have you. We must make sure that our thanks are a little bit more than just salutations, parades, and big sales over at the mall. Many of our men and women come back and they are physically and psychologically wounded. What we have to do is make sure that our government, local, state, and federal, provide quality health care that will help these individuals overcome the problems that they have gotten and encountered while allowing us to be free. We have an alarming suicide rate among our active and retired service members. The question comes to mind, what are we doing about it? Every time I go into a homeless shelter, the preponderance of people that I find in there are veterans. Is it that we don't care? And I know the answer to that. The answer to that, we care. What about employment? I was up on High Street the other day talking to individuals, veterans, and they say we can't find suitable employment. I said, well, what are you going to do? Well, I guess I'll just die because I'm also homeless. Now, another thing that I have discovered, increasingly, there are families that are now homeless. Families of veterans and of servicemen that are homeless. So if we want to think, yes, salutations are wonderful. Yeah, you did great. And thank you. But we need to push the politicians. We need to push the legislators. We need to push ourselves to ensure that these valuable individuals are treated humanely and professionally, because they have allowed us the ability to come out here today in beautiful sunshine and enjoy the freedom that their efforts have provided. I could go on in that regard, but I think the prophet Isaiah had us in mind when he wrote, "The time will come when they shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks, and they shall neither study war no more. But until that time, this morning I say to you wonderful veterans and those of you who are on active duty, may God abide with you and your families and protect you and bless you as only He can, and I salute you.
Wow. Thank you very much for that, John. And before we get to our musical medley, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention on Monday, we lost in the city of Portsmouth, or had a homegoing celebration for one of our citizens, Mr. William Rudolph Davis. He was referred to as Uncle Rudy. Uncle Rudy was 92 years old, born and raised here in Portsmouth, went to IC Norcom. And in 1941, President Roosevelt signed by executive order allowing African Americans to serve in the Marine Corps. And Uncle Rudy was one of about 20,000 African Americans that served in what is now known as Montford Point Marines. Montford Point was an area designated in Camp Lejeune for the black soldiers, Marines, to train and do all of the things that went on at Camp Lejeune. And Uncle Rudy was one of those 20,000, and he went on to serve in the Pacific Islands in the 52nd Battalion. I met Uncle Rudy about 3 years ago through one of our citizens on the 4th of July. I visited his home, and for about 3 hours, Uncle Rudy took me through his days here in Portsmouth all the way through to where he was on his front porch. And on Monday, by order of our governor and myself, the mayor, the flag, the state flag on the Capitol was flown at half-staff, and our city flag was flown at half-staff for Uncle Rudy. Now, I did not know, but there was a representative from the Marine Corps at the homegoing celebration that mentioned that there are 7 more of those Montford Point Marines that are here in Hampton Roads. I believe Mr. William Rudolph Davis was the only one in Portsmouth. So, and to be at that homegoing celebration and to have the Marine Corps there and to talk about that was really touching and fitting. And I just thought it was worth Vice Mayor taking this time to mention Uncle Rudy and ask all of you if we could share in just a moment of silence for that great hero.